I'm the dude. So that's what you call me.
Are you a virgin?
Yeah, not since I was 10.
Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret.
Come on to the coast. We get together, have a few laughs.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Can I return it if it doesn't fit?
It always fits. Eventually.
Welcome back, Movie Minglers. I'm Caveman.
And I'm Maggie.
And we are on episode 11, which Maggie and I just finished watching Pulp Fiction. This was from 1994, very 90s. It's celebrating this year its 30th anniversary.
Which is insane. It also came out on the same day as Shawshank Redemption. Both those movies premiered in theater on the same day.
I bet more people went to see Shawshank.
Probably, although a ton of people did go to see Pulp Fiction. It was a very high-grossing movie of that year.
I'm sure with the help of Reservoir Dogs, really got people interested, just if they were like, oh, this is from that Tarantino guy who did Reservoir Dogs, and because this is only his second film, which I have to say for films 1 and 2, like it or not, I still feel like these are very strong movies from the 90s. Critically, the way fans received it. I
haven't seen Pulp Fiction in its entirety in easily 20 years. And, I remember watching parts of it as a kid when my dad, watched it. He didn't necessarily send me away, although he should have, because, Christ, this movie is not for children. I just remember the parts that I saw of it as, a kid/teenager. I was always like, I don't fucking get it, and I don't like it. So this is not a movie that I've necessarily cared about beyond its, its place in movie history. Rewatching it for the first time as an adult was quite interesting for me. But yeah, it's a good film. It's, not my favorite. It's not even my favorite Tarantino film, but...
Yeah, it's not my favorite Tarantino film either. And we'll get to what our favorite Tarantino films are, because we have...
Well, I think...
This is one of 4 Tarantino films on our list. My favorite...
This one, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Kill Bill, and what's the 4th?
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Kill Bill.
Oh, Django.
This and Django Unchained.
God, I haven't seen Django Unchained in so long, but I remember loving it. So yeah, I don't even know if I could probably say what my favorite Tarantino film is right now.
Yeah, what's your favorite Tarantino film?
Honestly, it's probably Kill Bill 1. That or, shockingly, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I only just watched in its entirety, less than 6 months ago. I had a day off or a really late morning or something, so I just, watched it laying in bed one random Sunday morning, and it was fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a great film. But yeah, probably Kill Bill Volume 1 off the top of my head. Or 4 Rooms, but that doesn't technically count.
It doesn't technically count for a Tarantino-directed film.
No, because he only did a part of it.
He did direct a quarter of that film, meaning he was one of 4 directors to do the 4 stories. If you haven't seen...
Four Rooms, it's a genius movie.
4 Rooms,
Tim
4
Roth
stories,
is
4
so
directors. Good. Yeah, his story is not my favorite story, even in that movie.
No, it's probably the the stripper under the bed is probably my favorite.
That one's pretty great.
4 Rooms takes place on the night of New Year's Eve in a hotel, and it centers around the bellhop Tim Roth, who has to go to 4 different rooms in the hotel, and each one of those little... short movies is filmed and written by somebody, by different people. And it's delightful. It's a very funny.
And
Tim Roth is genius.
Tarantino does the last one,
yeah.
which I believe is called The Man from Hollywood.
Oh, off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you.
That's the first thing that came to my head, and I could be completely wrong.
But it's a fun one. I would happily rewatch. I would have rather rewatched that than Pulp Fiction.
It also, that last one also has Bruce Willis in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like we said, Tim Roth is the bellhop. But my favorite Tarantino film actually is also Kill Bill, and I think I'm doing it the way Tarantino does it. He says he's only going to direct 10 films, and that's it. And he's very serious about his 10th film is even being called the 10th and final film from Quentin Tarantino. But I guess I'll believe it when I see it that he never directs a film again. Well, we'll see. Time will tell. But he counts Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 as one film.
That's fair.
It's The Whole Bloody Affair is
Yeah.
what it's officially called when they're together. So I count The Whole Bloody Affair as one movie and my top Tarantino film.
And I just like the first part of it because the second part is boring.
It's not boring.
It's-
It's great.
Well,
Jackie Brown is
Jackie
my second
Brown.
favorite.
Fuck, I forgot about Jackie Brown.
Jackie Brown is fantastic.
Jackie Brown is so good.
And every time you watch it, you're like, oh yeah, I forgot that person in it. Oh, I forgot that person's in it. Got a young Michael Keaton. That's
Jackie
great.
Brown.
And then Django Unchained is my third.
Yeah, that's fair.
Pulp Fiction's 4.
Okay.
And then Inglourious Bastards.
Fun one, sure.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yep.
4 rooms I counted. At least
Yeah.
this is according to I have this list on my my letterbox to count.
Mm-hmm.
And Reservoir Dogs at 8. The Hateful Eight at 9. I know. I probably should have put Hateful Eight at 8 just to...
2 on the nose.
All right. Well, I'm just trying to be honest of which ones I like more than the others. And to me, none of these are bad movies either. I could just watch Tarantino movies all the time.
I have
Not
to be
bad.
in the mood.
Sure, there are some. I'm not saying I'm gonna be in the mood to watch them all, or even very often. But I've never had a Tarantino movie where I was just like, oh, that one sucked. And they're always good in their own way, and some are better than others for sure. Some are incredibly long, especially Hateful Eight's director's cut is almost 4 hours long, I believe.
Oof.
And then in Last Price, just not really my cup of tea as far as Tarantino storytelling goes. But Death Proof was the
Oh, I
last
forgot
one.
about that one.
And that's with...
Do we count From Dusk Till Dawn?
No, that's a
'Cause-
written
yeah,
only.
written and
Written
starring.
and starring. So
Yeah.
is one of the best movie that Tarantino has ever written, and this includes the ones that he's directed, would be True Romance.
You love that movie.
Stellar cast, stellar writing. Christian Slater, my favorite Christian Slater movie. True Romance is by far Tarantino's best written work. But we're here to talk about Pulp Fiction, which basically is about all these different stories kind of weaving into each other. There you got 2 mob hitmen, a boxer, a gangster and his wife, a pair of diner bandits, and then they just all kind of intertwine a little bit, some more than others. Got this is also an order of appearance.
All right, go
Because
for
of
it.
the way this movie is structured, order of appearance just seemed the easiest way to do it. So we've got Tim Roth, Amanda Plummer, John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson, Phil LaMarr as Marvin, Bruce Willis, Ving Rhames, Uma Thurman, Steve Buscemi, Christopher Walken, Kathy Griffin, Peter Green, Harvey Keitel, and Tarantino as Jimmy. And it's, like I said, really thick cast. Some people are on screen for 2 seconds, and some have a little bit longer dialogue, more scenes, what have you. But a lot of repeating people from Reservoir Dogs, like small parts in this one. You got Steve Buscemi,
Baby Buscemi.
who I believe played Mr. Pink in Reservoir Dogs.
Steve Buscemi, who, by the way, can forever get it. Like, I would throw down on that man so hard.
Harvey Keitel, who had one of the leading roles in Reservoir Dogs and now just has a bit part at the end.
Oh, but he's so good in this movie.
The wolf is such a cool character.
Yeah, he's so fun.
Yeah, Harvey Keitel's great. And there's some other people, but the fun thing that I always really enjoyed with this movie is it's one of my first experiences dealing with a movie that was not edited in chronological order.
Yeah, the movie kind of is all over the place.
It's all over the place, but it's also does it in a really organized, neat way, because the movie is essentially a palindrome. So it starts one way, and then by the middle, it ends going backwards the way it came from. So you start off with Tim Roth and Amanda Plummer's characters in the diner, which then goes into John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson at the guy's apartments with the gold briefcase, or the briefcase with a magic yellow glimmer, which we all know if you saw Community, it's just a light bulb.
Oh my god, I can only think about Community when I see that briefcase.
So we got their bit, and then you get later on you're introduced to Bruce Willis with Ving Rhames talking to him. also going from this, it leads into Vincent taking Marcellus Wallace's wife, Mrs. Marcellus, Uma Thurman's character out. So you get to see those two together. And by the time you get to Butch and his story, you see Uma Thurman and Vincent one more time before they are just off camera or get killed off. And then it starts going backwards from there, going back to Vincent and Jules finishing up their job with the briefcase and the accidental death in their back seat, and then back to the diner with Tim Roth and Amanda Plummer. So it's a bit of a palindrome in the editing.
I guess I never really, obviously watching it, I knew that it was not in order, but I didn't realize that it was the Taco Cat of movies.
The Taco Cat movies. So the movie just starts with a conversation between Tim Roth and Amanda Plummer. They're just in a diner having
breakfast or whatever. Yeah. It does go to show that American women are so enamored with a British accent that they will ignore all the red flags. Sure, this guy...
You think Amanda Plummer got into that relationship being a good girl, and
yes.
Tim Roth turned her into
absolutely, because he came in with that suave British accent and hey love, how you doing and all that. And the next thing you know, they're fucking robbing banks and, restaurants together. Absolutely, she didn't, set out... oh my god, you like robbing banks too? So do I. No, all she heard was that British accent, and she was a goner. And, girls, we all know we'd be the same way. We ignore all the red flags if it comes at us from a cute guy with a British accent.
Tim Roth, because of this movie, and I think also because of mainly because of this and Reservoir Dogs, I love Tim Roth. Every time he's in a movie I think he was in a TV show for a bit.
Tim Roth is a treasure. I'm always happy to see him in anything.
I was so happy that he came back for She-Hulk.
Oh my god,
nice
he was
to see his character
so
again.
much fun in She-Hulk. I loved She-Hulk, guys. I loved it so much.
We talked about Four Rooms, and he was also in a movie with Liam Neeson's called Rob Roy.
Liam Neeson's.
I also have a pretty good fond memory of him in, it's not a great movie, but Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes. He played one of the bad apes. Bad ape.
Yeah, Tim Roth is just one of those, delightful sort of character actors that is good in everything that you've ever seen him in. My
favorite,
how do you not love him?
My favorite role that he took as a villain was Justin Chambers, the Musketeer. He was D'Artagnan's nemesis in that version of the Musketeers. I don't know if you ever watched Justin Chambers' Musketeer. It was because D'Artagnan was always a really cool.
Who were the Musketeers in that one?
Ooh, it was not the best one, which is Kiefer Sutherland, Oliver Platt, and Charlie Sheen. Yeah, that's the best Musketeers.
I mean, they've made so many, and then they snuck in, the Musketeers into the Man with the Iron Mask.
Which
so
all kidding
good.
aside about the other one, The Man in the Iron Mask is
so good. I haven't seen that movie in too long. Do you want to rewatch that soon?
I would love to rewatch The Man in the Iron Mask. So, the only, they're really the only, it's not your typical Three Musketeers. Like I said, the movie's called The Musketeer. And it's mainly D'Artagnan's story, but he gets to go up against Tim Roth. The Cardinal and King Louis are still in it, but it's mainly just D'Artagnan and Tim Roth. I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun, and it's the first time I actually got to see some good fight choreography and good swordplay in a Musketeer type movie. This movie also made me, every time I hear somebody say garçon, I always say garçon means boy. I can't. This movie, like you've said before when we were watching it, this movie is such a parody of itself.
It's
now.
Such a parody of itself.
Everybody has done a joke that revolves around some aspect of this movie, and it's because it's 30 years old. It's had a lot of time. It's 30 years old. It's popular. It's
I mean, the
it's,
fact that
it's
it's
fun
still
to pick
in the
on.
top, like what, the top 15,
Easy to pick on.
like top 10, top 15 Letterboxd movies, and it's 30 years old. Like, yeah, it's going to be hard because, like, looking at the list, we have a lot of movies that we've seen that are older. You know, a lot of like 90s movies, Seven and What's in the Box. Fucking Forrest Gump is just nothing but a parody of itself these days. So it's sort of hard to watch these movies even with a fresh eye, because you're like, oh my god, I've seen this before, and it has gotten annoying. And, you know, inevitably it's going to come to a point where, like, the MCU movies become parodies of themselves. And, like, you know, Dune is absolutely going to be something that is parodied from now until the end.
I mean,
of
it
time.
already was with David Leitch's version.
Yeah.
David Lynch.
Family Guy always made fun of David Leitch's Dune.
David Lynch.
Yeah, but now,
And
like,
now
the new Dune
there's new fodder to throw at it.
Yeah. So it's sort of hard to watch these movies because they are so parodied, and almost to a point where it's a little cheesy, but it's hard for me to push past that sometimes. And I had a hard time with that with Pulp Fiction. Since I hadn't seen this movie as an adult, I found myself, like, I didn't want to watch it. I was like, oh, okay, Pulp Fiction, let's just get it over with. But I found myself really enjoying it because I was, you know, like, I saw it as a kid, which is not a movie. This is not a movie you show your children, guys. I saw it as a kid, so a lot of it went over my head. So now seeing it as an adult and having a better understanding, like, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, and I get how great it is. I'm not going back to this one a lot. I'm not going to be, like, you know, oh, what am I going to do for the next 2.5 hours? I'm going to put on Pulp Fiction.
This was a long one.
Like,
and
2.5 hours in 94, what are we doing?
I know Tarantino is known for a long run time. Just like when Christopher Nolan comes out with a new film, like, okay, how
that's
long?
not the only way they're like, by the way. I've got theories I'll get to in a minute.
I think I forgot exactly how long Pulp Fiction is.
Yeah, I was sort of shocked that it was 2.5 hours.
And maybe it's because I get sucked into the story every time, and time just kind of goes by, and I don't notice it because I'm just always intrigued. This last time, though, it did feel like it felt a little longer. By the time we got to, Butch's story, from the moment he
gets the watch. We see Christopher
Walken
Walken
by
in
the
the
time
watch.
from Christopher Walken's story to the next story
Mm-hmm.
is, quite a...
it's a long one.
A lot happens. The amount of feet mentions just in this one scene.
Oh, I counted.
Yeah.
I counted throughout the entire movie.
The entire movie, how many times are feet mentioned?
So both the word feet or foot and image of a bare female foot on screen is 35 times. There's 35 mentions or images of bare feet in this movie. And, like, I get that Tarantino has a foot thing, but man, does it get uncomfortable after a while. I don't...
And if you had asked me if the foot or feet are mentioned in Pulp Fiction... Like, yeah. I know it was a thing in Kill Bill. I know it was a thing in...
definitely thing in Once Upon a Time.
In Hollywood.
Feet.
Yeah, I know feet are a big thing for Tarantino. I just didn't realize how much it was in even his older stuff.
I mean, to be fair, I think I counted, like, the word foot or feet is used almost 20 times just in the conversation that Jules and Vincent have about... the foot massage.
I mean, they are talking about a foot massage.
Yeah,
and
but, like,
that's
they
part of
don't
the conversation.
they say foot massage about every
foot
other word. It's ridiculous. And, like, I get it. Tarantino has a foot thing, which is great, but, like, I don't need to see it. Has Bruce Willis ever been better than he is in a Tarantino film? And for that matter, has Travolta? Like, is this the pinnacle of acting for both of those men?
I think an argument could be said about Die Hard. I think Die Hard was definitely Bruce Willis's best movie ever.
Best acting?
But yeah, all of it.
Okay.
I think he does a great job in Die Hard.
But are we talking all the Die Hards or just Die Hard?
No, Die Hard 1 was definitely his best and the best. I like With a Vengeance just fine.
Die Hard with a Vengeance is my favorite.
And you get to see
Sam Jackson.
essentially Jules and
Yeah.
Butch together. I know a lot of these actors like to come back to Tarantino, especially Samuel L. Jackson. It is a little upsetting that somebody like John Travolta, I don't believe ever did a Tarantino movie
No,
again.
he didn't, but he was like, this revitalized his career. I mean, his career wasn't going many places until Pulp Fiction came along.
Because he had Grease.
Yeah.
And
Saturday Night Fever. He had some things in the 80s, like Look Who's Talking, which also starred Bruce Willis, which is sort of funny. But I remember loving Look Who's Talking. I haven't seen that movie in so long. That was like a movie we watched as kids a lot. I kind of learned about sex education and how babies were made because of that movie. Because we watched it a lot as kids.
wow.
The role was supposed to go to somebody else, and they had to pass on it. So Travolta got this role, and it was a huge comeback for him. And the 90s, it opened up a ton of new films and pathways for him, and
Became the Travolta-sance.
yeah, the Travolta songs. But like, was he ever as good as he was in this movie?
No, I don't think so. The only movie I like him better in than Pulp Fiction is Face Off. I think him and Nick Cage get to have so much fun playing playing one role and
That
then
movie
switching to
is-
the other.
We tried to watch it.
And they copy each
year
other's
and a half ago.
mannerisms.
Yeah, the last time we tried to watch that movie, which was about a year and a half ago, like, we had to turn it off about a half an hour in because I couldn't handle Nicolas Cage in that fucking movie. He is so over the top.
Absolutely ridiculous. Well, once he turns into who
Yeah, but
Travolta
once
is, then he calms down.
yeah.
But then now you've got Travolta acting like crazy Nick Cage.
Yeah, they must have had so much fun doing that movie.
Which is why I think he got to. I think Travolta's range he really got to do something with his acting in that one compared to Pulp Fiction. Even though I love everybody in this movie. These
Yeah.
are all great actors, especially in '94.
There's a reason why Sam Jackson got nominated for an Oscar for this film. He is phenomenal in every single scene he's in. Like, any scene that he's in, you can't take your eyes off of him.
He gets the best lines,
Which also, I'm just going to bring
most
this up
quotable lines.
real quick. How does that man not have an Oscar? He has an honorary Oscar for Lifetime Achievement, which is still an Oscar, but
It's
let's
like,
be honest,
all
like,
right,
it's
you
a
didn't
bit of
win ever,
yeah.
but we're going to give you this because we feel sorry for you not ever winning.
I'm not
But at the
calling
same
it a
time,
pity
we
Oscar.
are acknowledging that you are.
But the man deserves something. Like, he's great in everything he does. Sam Jackson, Samuel L. motherfucking Jackson.
I mean, every
a king.
Tarantino film that Samuel L. Jackson does, he's playing a character that I'm really invested in. He played really one of my favorite characters in Jackie Brown as the gun dealer. Django Unchained. I
He's
think he
so
did
good.
really
And
good.
How did
in
he
that
get
one.
a nomination for that role?
I don't know. He just
Like-
continually does amazing
Yeah.
things, and yeah, he plays schlocky characters too. That snakes on a motherfucking plane.
Oh my God, Snakes on. He's
or
Deep Blue.
Deep Blue Sea, man. I'm not gonna spoil that one for.
Anyways,
he's
Sam
great.
Jackson is just the best.
love Sam
Like,
Jackson.
we fucking love the man, and he's so good in this.
When they, all the quotable stuff that Sam Jackson does, especially in this scene with the guys in the apartment, the Bible verse that he loves.
Say what again?
Yeah, say what again, motherfucker, is always the classic. The Bible verse that he always has to tell people before he shoots them is great. This is also where we get to meet a very young Phil Lamar, who you don't often
sweet
see
baby.
because he's a famous voice actor. You don't get to see him act in real life in many projects. He has many projects of live action, but he's an amazing voice actor.
Yeah, we love Phil Lamar. In that scene, the Hawaiian burger looked really gross.
It did. It
The big
looked
kahuna burger?
So there's no way a Hawaiian burger looks like
No.
a basic McDonald's.
Yeah.
Just cheese and a patty
And a bunch of ketchup.
and a really ugly bun.
I pulled up a Binging with Babish episode where he remade that burger, and it was from 2017. So it was Baby Babish. Y'all know what Binging with Babish is, and if not, just YouTube Binging with Babish, and you're welcome. But yeah, it was just baby, and like the burger that he made, like he made the burger as seen on TV or seen on the movie, and it was just like a basic cheeseburger with ketchup, which I mean is tasty, but like bland and boring.
It looks so bland.
And then the one that he remade then with like grilled pineapple and grilled onions also didn't look that good either. It was definitely like early Babish skills. Because then I watched another video from, I guess, 2020. Because yeah, it's about 4 years ago, so around 2020, of where he remade the $5 milkshake. And he made the world's most expensive milkshake with like Louis XVI cognac and Tahitian vanilla beans and all this stuff, and it was a much better job.
That's
but
how
anyway,
much his channel has
that's
grown.
how much
Where
his channel has changed.
His ingredients go
Yeah.
from this is what I can afford to now.
And
I'm
also
just doing
his
this for
culinary
the.
skill.
I'm doing this for the video now.
Yeah.
The clicks.
But yeah, the burger looked gross, and that was my main takeaway from that scene.
The next scene is a one-sided conversation where you see Bruce Willis's face, but hear Marcellus Wallace's voice behind you.
Yeah.
And you really just see Bruce Willis just staring off to the side of the camera, not into the camera, but just off to the side, having this conversation with Marcellus Wallace about essentially throwing his fight that he has coming up.
Night of the fight, you may feel a slight sting. That's pride fucking with you. Fuck pride.
And then we get to see Jules and Vincent walk in different clothes that they were not previously wearing.
Very dorky
Like,
clothing.
what
happened there?
Yeah, it looks like dorks.
That's probably my favorite of the 3 or 4 like little vignettes in this movie. I think the one with the Bonnie situation.
The Bonnie situation is great.
The best. That's a solidly fun one. Although I
Christopher
enjoyed
Walken's dialogue.
half of Bruce Willis's thing. So, yeah, Christopher Walken was great, but wildly unnecessary. I don't know why any man would tell a 6-8-year-old boy that the watch that he was handing him had been shoved up like 3 different adult man's asses.
So he hid it. In one place he knew he could hide something, his ass. 5 long years he wore this watch up his ass. Then he died of dysentery.
There's way too much ass talk to be giving a watch to a child, is all I'm talking about. I don't know. Christopher Walken was great in that, but at a certain point that speech just became unnecessary, which was a theme that I noticed a lot in this movie, where there were several moments where, like, you can see a young Tarantino being like, oh, this is crazy, man. I'm going to, like, freak him out with this. Like, it's going to be a watch, but it was shoved up somebody's ass. And, like, they're going to have a fight. Like, Bruce Willis and Ving Rhames are going to have a fight that, like, takes them across town, and then it's going to end in, trigger warning, a sexual assault. There was so much that's unnecessary, like, unnecessary plot turns in this story that could only come from the mind of a young man that's just trying to, like, freak the world out, man. Like they're not even going to know what hit them. Versus, like, at least nowadays, I feel like he's a little more edited and not as, like, shock jockey. Does that make sense? Like, there were some parts of this movie that were just so unnecessary and immature. Also, I get it. It was a different time, but the racist talk in this movie made me so uncomfortable. It's a 30-year-old movie. They drop a lot of the bad racist words to the point where you're like, please stop saying the N-word, Quentin Tarantino, please.
He likes to do that.
I know, he loves that word, but I don't need to hear him say it anymore.
He likes giving himself characters where it's like, well...
It's okay for my character to say this.
Yeah, it's okay for my character to say this.
Like,
so it's okay for me to say it now.
It's just so uncomfortable for me. You know, we are working so hard to grow past that, especially in our art. You know, that to hear the liberal use, and it wasn't just racist words against African Americans, it's racist words against Hispanics, it's racist words against Asians. Like the man used the entire racist dictionary throughout this whole film, and it was uncomfortable. We don't want those words to be acceptable in our art and our culture anymore. Hearing it just makes you go,
but
like...
it still is
ugh.
today, and not just in Tarantino films.
No, I know. It's just, it's a little bit too much. Early Tarantino especially, was a lot of the too much of the shocking, too much of the in-your-face rawness. It was just too much. And I feel like
that's how he's made a
pulled
name
back
for himself.
a lot on
He has
that.
pulled, well, I
and
mean...
that's why I kind of prefer his older stuff.
Depend. Like,
Well, I mean,
Django's pretty much...
but
like,
that is what that movie is.
Hateful
though.
Eight is a lot of it.
Never saw it, and I don't plan on it.
Well, then that is his most...
Yeah, but those are all quote-unquote period pieces.
They are period pieces, which is why I don't remember hearing it in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
There was a lot less, like, racism in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
There was different stuff happening, like, between the Marilyn Manson people. They were a bit, maybe too much, but, but they're Marilyn Manson. See, that's the thing. It's like, or Marilyn...
Nope.
Charles Manson.
Manson.
God, I'm doing the same thing
See,
somebody
I'm not
else did.
only one that mixes up our words. Like,
I get my words mixed up, too.
Like, guys, you try doing this.
So in between Jules and Vincent coming in with new clothes and when we meet Christopher Walken is one of my personal favorite moments in the movie, which is John Travolta and Uma Thurman going out on a date or a night out to keep her entertained. It's not a date.
Yeah, because her husband, Marcellus...
Marcellus?
Marcellus Wallace. I want to call him Marcellus Wallace. But, Mr. Wallace goes off for the evening, and he wants somebody to keep his wife company and keep her happy. And that's John Travolta. And that whole sequence is a delight.
They go to one of the coolest... they go to a restaurant that I wish existed.
Oh, my God.
In the way that you see it in the film.
They spent like $150,000 recreating that restaurant. It was the biggest.
Well, being able to walk through that whole thing in one shot.
Outside of I think I read on IMDb, outside of the actors' salaries, that was the most. That restaurant was the most expensive part of the film.
It looked like it.
And it looked like
money was spent.
I want to go to that fucking restaurant where everybody is pretending to be
somebody from the 50s.
Somebody from the 50s. You're greeted like everybody's impersonators. The food looked fairly decent.
I love the cars being the tables.
Yeah, you can sit in a car.
Sit inside of a car with the closing door.
Yeah, like that is cool as hell. I know they're kind of like dumb, and these days they almost don't exist outside of some chains. I don't know if Ruby Tuesdays is still a thing.
Ruby Tuesdays or Richie's Diner.
Richie's Diner. I fucking loved a 50s diner growing up. And in California, where we grew up, they had some great ones, including one in Victorville, California, that wasn't too far from where Caveman and I grew up, that was used in From Dusk Till Dawn.
That's right.
Yeah, and
an old diner.
I think it was called Susie's.
We've had.
Yeah, we've eaten there.
We've eaten there.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh
my god.
Yeah, but it was like right off the freeway, kind of tucked into this little tiny, like, awkward desert spot out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, the deserts of California are a different sort of environment.
Anyway.
But yeah, the Uma Thurman stuff. She's forever babe. I mean, she can do no wrong. She's great and everything. She's stunning, absolutely stunning.
All the memorable moments from this are like
the dance,
them rolling up. Just the very beginning where they roll up and she's like, "Don't be a square." And the drawing.
She draws out the square.
And you got. I think the first appearance of Apple cigarettes. I don't think they were used in Reservoir Dogs, but I might be mistaken.
I think when I read on IMDb that they are a part of Reservoir Dogs. I think they've been a part of everything.
We also get to see Steve Buscemi as
Baby Buscemi.
Well, he's
Buddy Holly.
Buddy Holly, yeah. And actually, I completely forgot because he's sandwiching this moment. Eric Stoltz.
Oh yeah, which was nice to see him in his Jesus just facade. Like he just looked, I really enjoyed. Okay, so there's a couple of things I really enjoyed about the drug dealer sequence, both at the beginning of that story where Vincent goes and gets drugs, and then at the end when Uma Thurman's having her OD. I loved how casual Vincent and the drug dealer were just like chatting like friends. While they were casually, going through a drug transaction. Like, I just found that
talking
really
about
funny.
What kind of heroin he could get.
Yeah, and just, like, how terrible people are and all that stuff. And then in the OD scene, which, like, I was happy to see this pop up on IMDb's trivia, but there's a character named Trudy who's sitting on the couch.
Yes, the one with all the shit in her face.
No, the one with all the shit in her face
This is my wife. Oh, crap, I did the same mistake that Vincent did.
No,
It's the other way around.
Trudy's just the friend that's like chilling on the
Just
couch
chilling.
watching TV. She's wearing a T-shirt for the Frames, which is the band that
Right.
Glenn Hansard, my
Yep.
favorite musician on this whole planet, started. That's where he started his career. So that made me happy. That she's
I didn't
wearing
notice the shirt. I know
No,
who the frames are. But...
again, it was an IMDb thing, and I went, wee! I love that connection.
So, Bruce Willis's character Butch is supposed to be losing a fight.
Yeah, he promises Wallace that he's going to lose the fight. You know, the boxing match is rigged, and Butch is going down in the fight in like the third or whatever that means. But instead, he doesn't. He decides that he is going to take the money he was given by Wallace and place it on himself, essentially, through bookies, and he wins the fight. He wins the fight at the expense of murdering his opponent accidentally. But he wins the fight nonetheless, and then has to go on the lam from Wallace for, going back on their deal. And, it's funny that Bruce Willis is the character that kind of kills the most people in this movie. Like, there are trained assassins in this movie, and Bruce Willis kills more people than they do.
Yeah, left and right. Just first he kills the boxer that he's up against. I'm not sure about the person that he ran his car into, because he hits Marcellus out in the street, and
then
another
hits
car
somebody.
completely annihilates the other car. He kills at least the one guy in the racist basement.
Yeah, he does. He kills not
Kills the
Zed.
pawn shop guy.
Yeah.
And he may have killed the Gimp.
Yeah, I think he kills the Gimp too, because the Gimp's just seen hanging there.
Yeah, he's just hanging there, but I don't know.
He
if
kills
he's
Vincent.
actually-
Spoilers.
Yeah, that's right. He kills Vincent. Which, leading up to him killing Vincent, he's sneaking back to his apartment to get the gold watch, and then
that his dad shoved up his own ass.
his dad.
And Christopher Walken also had to shove up his own
Yep.
ass. So that watch has been up 3 asses.
So many different asses that watch has
Unnecessary.
been up.
That's all I'm saying. I wouldn't
And
keep that watch.
But the shot, there's one shot where he's outside walking behind another property to sneak up on the apartment property where his watch is.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I first watched this, or maybe, a couple in when I was really getting into film and not just mindless action films, the moment where where he goes through the chain link fence hole and the camera follows so seamlessly. I remember that blowing my mind. Like,
Yeah.
how did they film? When I first
Quentin
watched that,
Tarantino loves a long take.
really wanted to know how they did that when I was a kid. Nowadays, I could guess 3 different ways that they probably did it. Steady cams are helpful. Having somebody on the other side of the fence who's hiding to grab the camera once it goes through the hole is another way. Being on a line that you don't see is another way. It's clever editing sometimes to separate the scenes, but I don't think they did it. I think it was a solid one take. The scene right before where on the cab ride home, it's really interesting that the rear projection showing the taxi to make the taxi seem like it's driving is
Black
so
and white
obvious. Yeah, first of all, it's
footage,
black and white footage. I could see it being footage that he got from some other movie, because that's the way Tarantino what he would do. It was also very shaky, very unbelievable, but I think it was done that way on purpose. Like, Butch is in the backseat of this taxi cab throwing out his gloves, what he wrapped his hands in, everything, just to get rid of the fact that he had just been in a boxing match and killed a guy in the ring. And every time he throws something out the window, it just drops to the ground outside of their
As opposed to being
fake
like
cab. Yeah, instead of the wind taking it and blowing it behind them, and then he lights up a cigarette, and the smoke in the cab. Even the window's still rolled down, but the smoke in the cab is so, like, just stagnant air, just kind of floating in the cab. It's funny. It's probably one of the funnier scenes, because it seems like Tarantino did it on purpose, or they just didn't have the money to make it look more realistic. But the fact that he threw in a black and white rear projection of the cab moving just made me laugh as well. He gets to the hotel that him and his girlfriend are staying at. His girlfriend Fabienne.
Yeah, who I think is French, maybe.
She did He
speaks French a couple
he spoke
times
French to her.
Yeah. I really liked their relationship. I thought that it was very sweet. I think that it kind of, there's some moments that kind of point towards Fabienne being pregnant, because she talks about growing a large pot belly. She talks about, she wants to tell Butch something, but he falls asleep before she can. She talks about wanting to eat a giant breakfast. So, like, there are moments where their relationship is really, really sweet, and then you see his anger.
He does get angry at her because she forgets the golden watch.
He
but
does.
Then
but then
very
he
quickly, very quickly, he like, oh shit, I need to reel all that back in.
He brings it back
apologize,
and then he rants about it in the car when he's alone.
Well, you're by yourself, and now you can rant about her.
Yeah.
But with her in the moment, he was like, "It wasn't your fault. I didn't express how much it meant to me."
Yeah.
And
but he still was terrifying to her, which makes me think that maybe it is a slightly, maybe verbally abusive relationship. I don't know.
It could develop if he has that kind of anger around her. I mean, he's a boxer, which is already a very violent sport.
Dad, so.
Who did grow up with a dad, who just killed a man and said he felt nothing about it.
Yeah, but I still found that they were very sweet together. I think that we don't see we see some like relationships and couples in this movie, but I found that theirs was the sweetest. Outside of Jules and Vincent, who I want to track down some fan fiction between those two.
Great chemistry between them.
Because somewhere out there's some, Vincent Jules /
and there
fanfic.
Is absolutely zero. You don't see Marcellus Wallace and Mrs. Wallace talk to each other.
No, they never
acknowledge
speak to
each other, hug each other, touch it. Like there's not a scene with them holding hands.
No.
Or anything. They are just
but Bush
the furthest away from
Fabienne
being in a relationship.
It's genuinely sweet and lovely, and I kind of hope for the best for them, because I think that they get the happiest ending of all of them. Of all the characters, those two just ride off into the sunset on a chopper. And hopefully they go have a better life in Bora Bora or wherever it is that they were planning on going.
Jules wants to retire, so maybe he'll get his retirement, especially after Vincent dies.
The fact that Vincent spent 3 years in Amsterdam, comes back, gets to hang out with Jules for a minute, and then the second Jules is like, I'm out, Vincent dies. It's a real bummer. Like,
right.
It's sad for Vincent.
Once Butch gets his gold watch and drives away, he thinks, I did it. I got my watch. They're not chasing me. I even got one of them.
Yeah.
It's off scot-free. And then he sees...
He quite literally runs into Wallace.
Quite literally runs into Marcellus Wallace. And... I love Ving Rhames. I haven't seen pretty much, I think this movie and the Mission Impossibles are unfortunately my only big Ving Rhames movie memories. I may have seen him in other stuff.
If we slammed through his IMDb.
If I looked through it, I'd be like, oh yeah, he was in that. Oh yeah, he was in that. But right now, the only thing that comes to mind is this and the Mission Impossible movies. The big surprise that every time I watch this movie, I forget she's in it. But after the car crash, who's to Butch's rescue but Kathy Griffin?
God, that was weird. Because there's, so like seeing a young Buscemi in this movie makes sense because he was in Reservoir Dogs.
Makes sense.
And like you don't really ever see his face too well, but you hear that voice and you're like, oh, that's baby Buscemi. And then like you see some other people like Julia Sweeney from Saturday Night Live. And like the second she opened her mouth, I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely her. But when I saw Kathy Griffin, I had to be like, wait, is that Kathy Griffin? And then it kind of flooded back to me like, oh, yeah, she, like, I think her and Tarantino dated for, like, a hot second.
Interesting, because in this movie, she's credited as playing a character named Kathy Griffin.
Which, she had a bit part in 2 lines.
An extra with lines wouldn't usually be able to just get a character named after you. It was definitely like, I know the director kind of situation. Always takes me out of the movie a little bit. Like, she's just a little bit too...
Kathy Griffin
in the moment when, after this big car crash, this leads them to fight Marcellus and Butch. First they have a shootout, then they find themselves fighting inside of a pawn shop, not knowing that it's a very racist pawn shop. I mean, it's a pawn shop, first of all.
With trigger warning from this point on, there is going to be talk of essentially sexual assault. So if you're uncomfortable with that, feel free to skip forward a few minutes. What point was any of that in that movie except for finding common ground for Butch and Wallace?
Well, like you said,
stand off?
Yes, Tarantino is a shock director.
Yeah.
I think it was supposed to like, what's the worst thing you could do to a millionaire gangster?
Yeah.
He's obviously connected. He knows people. They don't know who he is.
No.
But what's something that's going to really
What's something
get
that's
this
going to quote unquote
guy?
humble this guy?
Right. And he was, I mean, sure. There are ways you could have written it to be like maybe they were just beating him just to really get this guy to hate these two other.
These two fucking yokels. But they
Yeah.
didn't have to go, like, I get it. The 90s was different.
I mean, it was.
But it was just watching that with the
It wasn't
view of
so
now.
shocking though that they like. It's not like Tarantino showed anything either.
No.
You only hear stuff coming from
You do see
behind the door.
You do see moments of
A little bit
thrusting.
A little bit, very little, and
Robin, stop biting my
considering there are, I mean, the scene in the two Girl with the Dragon Tattoo movies is so much
computer, which
worse.
I've never seen.
They're more modern, and they were so much worse than anything that happened in Pulp Fiction. When two bad guys have the upper hand, and then very quickly, karma takes over.
Yeah, it was nice seeing those guys, all three of them, get their comeuppance.
Because he saves Marcellus Wallace's life. As long as you get out of L.A. and never come back, everything
We're cool.
We're good.
Yeah.
We're good now. We're even for saving my life. So he rides away on the chopper and picks up Fabienne on the old chops and
Yeah, off
ride
they
away
go,
into the
hopefully
sunset.
to
Like you
have a
said,
nice life.
one of the better relationships and one of the better endings. This takes us all back to them in the guy's apartment, shooting them up for saying what too many times, and they were there. They were there to
gonna kill those
They were there to
guys.
kill
Yeah.
those guys anyway, and then get Phil Lamar's character out.
That's another thing about this movie that I guess I found, a sort of annoyingly, glaringly, obviously plot hole-ish, which is the fact that, like, there are shootings in apartment buildings. There is a loud car crash on the front lawn of a suburban neighborhood, and, like, no cops are called. No nosy neighbors.
No nosy neighbors.
Are like, what's going on? There's no, like,
It's
running
LA.
and screaming.
It's LA. We're all used
Yeah,
to
it's
it.
like, oh, it's LA. Of course we're going to hear a MAC-10 be shot off into an apartment and just go on
They
with
had a
life.
silencer on.
It still made a lot of noise. Like, I'm just saying, like...
No,
it-
I know.
There
They
were,
made
there were
they made
moments where I was like,
a
where
lot
the
of
fuck are
noise.
the cops in this? Like, how did they get away from this?
That's Reservoir Dogs.
Eh.
There's unknowingly another shooter behind one of the doors, and he shoots at them. They shoot back, and Vincent or Jules thinks it's a miracle that he's still alive, and whereas Vincent's just like, yeah, whatever. We were
Let's
lucky.
get outta here, man.
Yeah, just get out of here before the police show up. Before these imaginary police that nobody's calling show up. They accidentally shoot poor Phil Lamar in the head. And even every
Which
time
is
you see
so funny.
every time you see it, John Travolta turns around and he's got the gun just pointed right at him.
Like, why would you still be holding
Why
the gun?
would you still have it out? He's got a holster. That
Yeah.
we saw him later. They've got those undercover kind of holsters that detectives use, and
Yeah, like, why is he still holding it? Like, because it always kind of felt to me that...
he's a professional.
Well, that and that Phil Lamar's character was kind of like an inside man. He wasn't a hostage.
Yeah. No, he wasn't.
But just the fact that when it leads to them in Jimmy's house, having an argument, like a verbal argument in the bathroom about everything that's just happened, and they're covered in blood and guts. There's brains stuck in Jules's hair. Like, I just found that so funny.
When Jules is in the bathroom and he's very careful to wash his hands very well, and you even see him with the white towel at first, and he puts it back on the rack so nicely, and it's still white.
Yeah,
and
it's
you
like
look to the right, and Travolta's just got this pink towel that he's washing his hands
There's
with.
not a care in the
He's
world.
like, what the motherfucker are you doing? I mean, I do like everything in this scene.
Yeah, it's
yes,
probably the
Tarantino's
most
a little over
fun.
the top with all the
N-words.
all the N-words,
Yeah.
especially since he is married to a black woman. Especially like, why
Yeah, like, calm down, man.
why do we
Just-
need to be talking like this
Yeah.
in front of all these people? But okay, they're all bad guys. They're villains. They're gangsters. We're gonna talk this way. I can see Tarantino acting like that. Like,
Yeah.
this is just the way gangsters
This is
talk.
just the way it is, man. Like, this is just how it's
Yeah,
done.
just playing
man.
the character.
Like, don't worry
like,
about it,
yeah,
man.
don't
Like,
worry
it's
about
fine.
it. It's fine.
And then we
But-
get to meet
Harvey Keitel.
Harvey Keitel,
The coolest character in the movie by far.
the coolest, absolutely. He just seems as you know, the cleaner, basically. And him telling everybody what jobs they have to do and exactly how much time they have to do it and how cool and collected he is.
So, pretty please, with sugar on top. Clean the fucking car.
There's a moment where all four of them are together and the wolf and the wolf and Jimmy are spraying Vincent and Jules down with the hose. And it's just like, you could tell they had so much fun filming that. And you can almost see it on Tarantino's face. Like the fact that he wrote this and he's getting these actors that he loves to do this. Like, you could see how much fun he's having. And I just found joy in that. And
him being the director, standing next to Harvey Keitel, directing him where to spray Jules and Vincent with the hose. Just
so funny. I really thoroughly enjoyed that whole scene because, like, the fact that they do manage to clean that car and that poor Jules was on brain duty when it should have been Vincent.
Like, why am I doing brain and skull duty?
We're switching,
you should be
motherfucker.
back. We're switching, motherfucker.
It's just like, man, they're just so much fun. That was the part that I was sort of happiest with, because I was like, I thoroughly enjoyed most of the Bruce Willis story, but then I was like, okay, like so much of that was unnecessary, but here we go. And then this sort of vignette came in, and it was just a ton of fun, and sort of happy and goofy, and yeah, like I thoroughly enjoyed the Bonnie situation. That would be the one that I went back and rewatched over all of them.
Then after the Bonnie situation is cleared up, we rewind.
Yeah.
We rewind.
Well, that's why they end up being in those dorky ass clothes.
That's right. So we do fast forward
because they have to get clothes from Vincent or from Jimmy.
Yeah, I'm thinking of something else.
And like they're in a fucking just t-shirts and little like board shorts and just they look
like
so dorky. It's great.
But they go to the diner where Tim Roth and Amanda Palmer are hanging out and about to rob. Amanda Plummer. And there's a moment where Jules says that he wants to wander the earth like Kane in Kung Fu. And it made me smile because later David Carradine, who played Kane, gets to be in Kill Bill. But then I never, as a kid, I didn't watch Kung Fu the movie, but my dad and I watched Kung Fu: The Legend Continues, which was also David Carradine, but now this is the TV show that takes place after the movie. So I didn't know that there was a movie. I just knew the TV show called Kung Fu: The Legend Continues.
I haven't seen a single second of any of it.
It's okay. This is one where I'm like, this was a very moment of its time. It's one of those TV shows that you're just come on, just like The Pretender or I'm trying to think of some of those other 90s kind of dramas.
Oh, I loved
Highlander a little bit, Renegade,
Medium.
Yeah, just those wonderful 90s drama TV.
The X-Files, which I can't talk about without screaming.
It was all very kind of A-team type setup where this man or these people have a set of skills and we're wandering the earth and we will help people when we run into them, which is a very Akira Kurosawa type story that has just been repeated.
It's just
through
one of
the
those.
ages.
Yeah, it's one of those great story tropes that lasts forever.
I really do enjoy the conversation that's had between Samuel Jackson and Tim Roth in the diner.
Yeah.
All that's really fun. Him telling him to get his wallet that says "bad motherfucker" on it.
Which was Tarantino's wallet.
Of course it was, and I know some people that have wallets that say "bad motherfucker" on it.
Yeah, because why wouldn't you merchandise that immediately?
Of course, it's been sold. And then that's essentially the end of the movie. Everybody, Vincent and Jules go off to meet Marcellus Wallace later because they don't want any violence to escalate and anybody to get really... Because they're not, even though they're gangsters, they're not really concerned with other diners being hurt.
So they just want these guys to leave.
They don't even mind Tim Roth and Amanda Plummer walking off with all the wallets and cash registers. In a way, wraps up with a bow on it. Even though it's not the end of the movie technically in chronological order, because then some people die and.
But that's Pulp Fiction, man.
That's Pulp Fiction.
It's a movie that exists. I don't know. It's great. It's a ton of fun. It's got its place in history. And I see why.
It's got its place in Tarantino's career and filmography, and
but it hasn't aged well. Not all of it has aged
Of course,
well.
yeah, not all of it's aged well.
And it's got its place in history, and it's got its fans. It's got its very fervent fans, and like, good for you guys. It's not my favorite thing in the whole wide world. As for rating, I would probably give this movie a solid 3.5. I would say personally, like, I get it for what it means for movie history and what it was and how it helped the careers of so many of the people that were in it, but it's still not my favorite cup of tea.
This is a 3.5 for me as well. It has always been on my top 5 or 6 Tarantino movies. If I was a Tarantino fan from the very beginning, like if I was of the age where I could have been following him as an adult since Reservoir Dogs, I'd probably have Pulp Fiction high on my list.
We were like
just for nostalgia.
Young teenagers when this movie came out. So.
Yeah, I was mid-teens, maybe
it came out in
later
94?
teens.
I was 10 when this movie came out.
Yeah, and I was 13 or 14 when this came out. So by the time I saw it, it was still like it was probably like 98, 99 by the time I saw it. But he's got so many other movies. Like his next movie is Jackie Brown.
Yeah,
after
and
this
Jackie Brown is
so much better.
Such a phenomenally good film.
I love Jackie Brown so much.
It's a shame that that's not on this list.
It's not on this list.
It should be on this list instead of Pulp Fiction, but I get why Pulp Fiction is on the list.
I think Pulp Fiction, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Pulp Fiction's just reached that plateau more than Jackie Brown did.
Of greatness for the sake
greatness
of
for
what it was
right.
and what it became.
Hey Maggie.
Yes, Caveman.
I have 2 questions for you.
Yay!
This will be an interesting one. Would the presence of Oscar Isaac have made this movie better, even though Oscar Isaac was pretty young when this movie came out? But I guess that really doesn't age. You could pick Oscar Isaac at any age, really, or any other performance that you want to compare. Like,
so yes, this movie would have been much better if Oscar Isaac's incredible hair and beautiful nose was in this movie. Like I would have thoroughly enjoyed seeing a baby Oscar Isaac in this movie. It would have made me so happy.
Question number 2: which character would you have given Oscar Isaac to play?
Well, going with, and off the top of my head, I don't know what the age of Oscar Isaac was in 93, 94, and this movie was filmed, so 93. But I imagine he would have been like a late teenager, early 20s. And I think he would have been good as one of the guys in the apartment that had stolen money or drugs from Wallace and then got, killed by Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta. So I think that he would have been really great as Dan, or Brad. Look at the big brains on Brad.
Big brains
Could
on
have been the big
Brad.
brains on Oscar, and I would have loved that thoroughly.
Welcome to my movie review for Rebel Moon Parts 1 and 2. Before I give my review, real quick, Maggie's just ready to explode if she doesn't get this out of her. So Maggie, why don't you tell everybody what you thought about Rebel Moon Parts 1 and 2?
Rebel Moon was hot garbage. That was one of the dumbest goddamn, stories I have ever sat down to watch. I can't believe that anyone, Netflix or otherwise, gave Zack Snyder any amount of money, especially over $100 million, to make such a giant piece of shit that is just a ripoff of the classic Seven Samurai story, but not even in a good way. I barely remember Rebel Moon 1. Rebel Moon 2 is just a disaster of a film. There is so many shots of slow motion grain that it borders on ridiculous. Which, it's a Zack Snyder movie, of course there's going to be slow-mo, but legit shots of a lot of slow-mo wheat. And I just couldn't understand it. The only character that is worth even a little bit is Jimmy, the robot, as voiced by Anthony Hopkins. He's the only one who's somehow able to move above the awful dialogue and actually give the character any sort of depth. The main actress is just a cardboard cutout that they moved between scenes. The shirtless dude that's just shirtless for shirtless reasons is a mop that somebody is physically moving with a bouncy, the mop hair bouncing around. It's bad. It is bad. And then they try to set it up for a third? A trilogy? Like, no, honey, no. Nobody is going to give you any money to make it. The fact that they pushed Rebel Moon 1 so hard and then Rebel Moon 2 came out and Netflix went, yeah, we're not telling anybody. We're just releasing it. Netflix all but gave up on Zack Snyder and this fucking film, and it shows because it was awful, except for Jimmy, who is pure and good. The rest of it, all I can say is just thank God that Kathleen Kennedy went, thank you, but no thank you. We don't need your Star Wars story. I'm just sad that somebody went, you know what? Yes, we do. So, yeah, it's a flaming pile of shit, that one.
As far as the way I feel about these two movies, oh boy, I mean, my thoughts are pretty much just the same as Maggie's. I didn't find any amount of enjoyment in this film, in either one of them. First of all, the whole movie is a retelling of Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai. Very popular film. Many filmmakers have remade this already. It's one of George Lucas's favorite films. He pulled a lot of it for Star Wars. When they did Mandalorian Season 1, Episode 4, directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, there's an episode called Sanctuary. And it's basically the same thing. The Mandalorian teams up with an ex-soldier to protect a farming village from raiders. Another movie that really takes more than just the story, but also practically the name, was The Magnificent Seven, which pretty much is the same story. And for people who might be, maybe you never got around to Magnificent Seven, for the newer generation, take a movie like A Bug's Life. When I first started watching Rebel Moon Part 1, I looked over at Maggie and I said, this is just A Bug's Life. Like, even more than just Seven Samurai. It felt like every beat felt like A Bug's Life. You've got the grasshoppers coming from the sky to rain upon this village of ants who are puny to, the grasshoppers coming from the sky, just the insignificant and weak ant. The ants have an offering which is lost, and so the grasshoppers demand they have a certain amount of time to deliver the food, and they don't care if the village can't survive themselves without their food. One steps up with a plan saying, hey, I'm going to go out into the world and find warriors to help protect our village. Zack Snyder was originally supposed to be he was originally going to write a Star Wars movie for Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm eventually said, no thank you, and I don't know if that's because they saw what he wrote and just decided against making something, because supposedly he took what he was supposed to do for Star Wars and did it here for his own film, Rebel Moon. There's a lot of nods to Star Wars itself. Not only do you have the woman with the blades that light up to become like a red lightsaber, but in Part 2 they go even further and have some foot soldiers with blue batons that glow. The acting is awful. Everybody sucks. The only standout character and actor was Anthony Hopkins as the robot Jimmy. Jimmy was barely in this movie, and he was the best part about it. Jimon Hansu as Titus in Part 2 had more to do and did a really good job compared to everybody else. Currently, Rebel Moon Part 1 has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 21%. About 100 people decided not to watch Part 2 because only 93 reviewers gave Part 2 15%. I've watched a couple YouTube channels where they enjoyed Part 2 a little bit more, which I kind of agree with the fact that at least the story in Part 2 starts to develop a little more. There's better character development, but that's about it. I think the worst part about Part 2 is it's essentially just a retelling of everything we've already seen in Part 1. they really don't do much different between the two films. Even the villain comes back to life for part 2, and they have to do everything they did in part 1 again. There's some neat action scenes at the end of part 2, and there's one good action scene at the beginning of part 1. Everything in the middle is a lot of slow-mo. Worse than any of his DC films or Watchmen. I was more entertained by Sucker Punch by a long shot. There was just nothing original about anything happening on the screen. I've seen it all done over and over and over. Even the action for the in between, like there's a decent hand-to-hand combat scene at the beginning of part 1, and you're like, wow, if that's what I have to look forward to for the rest of the film, this is going to be really fun to watch. The acting might be terrible, but at least I'll be entertained. At least I'll be entertained by the action. I think the coolest thing that I saw in between action scene at the beginning and the big battle at the end was some sort of griffin or hippogriff that the guy who is allergic to shirts rides and tames, I guess, but then kills the owner. I don't know. That was kind of fun to watch. Ray Fisher, who played Cyborg in the Justice League movie, is back again with Zack Snyder after the ugly split up he had with DC. When he was announced that he was going to be in this movie, I was like, oh, cool. Zack Snyder said, hey, follow me. We'll do a movie together. And then he gets killed off in like 5 minutes. It's so ridiculous. It took so long to watch this movie. Or part 2 especially. It took me so long, so many tries to watch through it. I either got bored and turned it off to try again, or I fell asleep during it. Everything Maggie said at the beginning of this, I agree with. And it was just such a disappointment for, I've been enjoying Zack Snyder's movies with Dawn of the Dead and 300, Watchmen even. I found joy in watching. I don't mind Man of Steel. And then everything else is just kind of diminishing returns and quality is lacking. These two movies together cost $166 million. And I almost feel like Netflix should sue Zack Snyder for giving them a cheap joke, a cheap shot at making a Star Wars movie. And honestly, this is one of the smartest things that Lucasfilm has done in a long time, and that was pass on Zack Snyder's Star Wars film. And that is essentially how I feel about Rebel Moon Parts 1 and 2.
And that's this week's episode on Pulp Fiction. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed watching it and talking about it. Of course, you can follow us on Instagram at movieminglepod. You can also find us on Letterboxd, where you can find out how I, Maggie, rate all these films and where I put them in order. And also, I've been keeping track of all the movies I've seen in 2024, including we just watched Monkey Man. And it was fantastic. So you can see my ratings on all the movies that I'm watching this year as well. You can write us at movieminglepod@gmail.com if you have any suggestions or comments. And we just want to say thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. Please feel free to leave reviews on any of the podcast platforms that you listen on and give us some 5 stars so people can find us. Next week, we will be talking about The Fantastic Mr. Fox, which is a great film by Wes Anderson, and I cannot wait to deep dive into that one. So go out and have a wonderful day. Go mingle with your friends. Bye.
Are you an effective team?
We are an effective team.
Let them fight.
How did you just do that? I'm a really good lawyer.
Here on Caladan, we ruled by air power and sea power. On Arrakis, we need to cultivate desert power.
Welcome, Mr. Beach. What's that bar? I'm a little confused.
Well, we wouldn't want that, would we?
I don't want to brag, but I will. I was in the Avengers.
The Avengers?
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you.
What is that?
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Toga, 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 toga.